there are 5 odd digits in the blue region that are not in these cells, and they must be there because this is even, and they must add up to 5 more than that square. So if that's an 8, these would have to be 13. Yeah, it's perfect. It's absolutely perfect. If I minimise the purple digits, absolutely minimise them, then I've got 13. that is stupendously brilliant, Zegrass. That is absolutely beautiful. Oh my goodness me. That's one of the most wondrous beginnings to a Sudoku.
Because yellow is low, and so now this is a 3, which would put a 1 here and a 9 here, and they can't go that way because of the Renbon. Okay, so we can fill in a bunch of digits.
Right. This is so cool. I can see why this puzzle's loved. It's just, the logic in it is so weird and wonderful. Look at this now.
Sean and Liz. Sean returns. Ed and Diane. Liz returns. And then Sean and Liz again. All right, now, does that help with the Sudoku? I don't know. Let's find out.
Wow, that's just great. I love that. And when I saw the riddle was going to give you some information about the grid, and I assumed it would be something like this, I thought, just gorgeous. Wow. I'm sorry, I'm just chuffed about how this puzzle works. I just love it.
Welcome, everyone. Welcome, Zegrass. And all those who are joining us for the beginning of the stream. You're all having a wonderful day. How are you doing today, Zegrass?
I'm doing good. Sorry. Great to see everyone.
All right. Well, I'll bring up the Patreon screen and thank all my patrons for supporting me and supporting what we're doing here and these wonderful interviews that we get to do every single week. Their names are up on the screen, and they sponsor these warm-up questions. So let's start with these sort of more get-to-know-you questions. Whereabouts do you live?
I live in Boston, in the States. I'm originally from Russia, but I moved here when I was 11, and I've sort of been in this area the whole time.
Nice. What do you do for work?
So I'm a data scientist. I used to be in finance. Now I'm more in tech, like analytics space. So kind of programming and data analysis, that type of thing.
Nice. Seems to be a common area in this community.
Yeah, there's a large overlap between like programmers and data scientists and Sudoku people, for sure.
Exactly. Yeah. Do you have any hobbies or interests outside of puzzling?
Well, I kind of did before I had kids. It's a little bit reduced, but I do love hiking, skiing. So what I try to do is do that with my daughter, who was 4. So she's starting to be able to like keep up with hiking and things like that. So yeah,
fine. That's awesome. How do you balance puzzling with the other things in life like kids?
Well, the real answer to that is badly. Well, basically, I mean, I had to get rid of most of like my hobbies. I don't watch as many TV shows or movies because like that kind of free time has been more taken up by Sudoku. But I don't sub very much, and I don't solve very much, and I don't participate in Discord as much as I'd like to. Yeah, I mean, I just do as much as I can. I'm kind of like I want to do more than I am, but I'm fairly limited. But yeah, obviously, work and kids come first. So yeah.
Right. Are you more of an outside or inside person?
I mean, I definitely like to balance. No, I'd like to be outside more, but my job is very much stay at your desk type of thing. So I am an indoor person who wants to be an outdoor person.
Touch grass every day, Do you have any pets other than your kids?
I do. I have a dog named Whiskey.
Nice.
I'm still like, I'm thinking of making some kind of puzzle that's dedicated to her. I already made a dog puzzle like has a dog in the screen. At least I thought it was a dog, but no one saw it. Called Woof, and that was sort of like a puzzle for Whiskey. But yeah, so I have a dog, Whiskey. She's a mutt, really cute. very active. Wish she was a little less active, but she's great. Yeah. Not a cat. No cats.
No cats. Okay. Do you have a favorite food
Favorite
or
food.
cuisine?
I mean, I guess I really like steak. I've been, which isn't kind of obvious, but I've been trying to like improve my steak game over many years, and I think
Yeah.
think I'm finally at a place where it can't be improved other than just using better steak.
Right. Right. Do you have a favorite type of music?
I like kind of all sorts of music. Yeah, very very wide. I suppose I've been listening to a lot of reggae lately because it's really good to listen to with kids, and I don't hate it. I like it more than kids' music,
Right.
and it's like very kid friendly. So
Right.
been listening to a lot of old school reggae lately.
Just chill. Yeah.
hmm
Favorite TV show from before?
I like quite a few TV shows. I mean, like my favorites are like Breaking Bad, The Wire, like generally crime thrillers, Justified. I don't know, Fargo, things like
Yeah.
that. Those are some really great ones.
Favorite kids show?
Favorite kids show? I think Bluey is a clear winner. That's a fantastic kids show. If anyone has kids, Bluey's the
Okay.
best. Yeah.
Uh,
That's the one that when my daughter watches, I don't like want to jump out the one. She's onto Pokemon now, so
right.
and I did not grow up with it, so I just can't deal with Pokemon. I wish she would watch more Bluey.
There's not a lot of overlap with kid shows in Breaking Bad or The Wire.
That's right. Yeah, she's not she's not into The Wire yet.
Not yet. Uh, favorite movie or film?
Favorite movie. That's just like an impossible question. I
Yeah.
do like movies and TV shows a lot, and books. I mean, noir, crime, horror, thrillers. I don't know, maybe like Clockwork Orange or something. I don't know. That's a pretty great movie. Or I don't know. Yeah, it's hard to decide. I like a lot of movies. Maybe like Tarantino, Coen Brothers type of thing. That's probably my favorite. My daughter is loosely named after the main character in Kill Bill, so. Yeah. So yeah, I'd say like something like Pulp Fiction maybe is my favorite movie. I don't know.
Cool. Cool.
Mhm.
All right. Before we get any further, we should ask how do you pronounce Zegrass before I mispronounce it like 80 times?
Oh, sure. So I mean, I don't know how obvious my name is. The Zegrass name is. I suppose it's I can sort of spoil it if people want it, but it's just my name backwards. It's Serge Z. Z is the first letter of my last name.
Right.
So Zegrass is just Serge Z backwards. I got an early Google account where there weren't too many ones taken because it was only 6 letters. So that was nice. And then I just kept the name for like a lot of my internet things. Anyway, but yeah. So you pronounce it Zegrass. Like it was funny. Mark yesterday in yesterday's feature was saying Zegrash, which I don't know where he got the sh sound, but I kind of liked it. So I don't know. Maybe I'll say it's pronounced Zegrash. I'm not mysterious like Grockles or anything though, or at least that's how I say Grockles.
I feel like
as far as how my name is pronounced, it's I'm fine with anything, but
Zegrash almost sounds a little bit more like Russian or something. So
I am Russian, and my name is
Yeah.
Sergey. So yeah, it's you probably got it right, more or less.
that's the Russian pronunciation. Mark looked it up for a
That's
word
right.
that doesn't exist.
Yeah.
Well, thank you to our patrons one last time before I turn off their little thing so we can see this beautiful background. And
Yeah, hopefully you get to a point where you can't even see anything behind a wall of patrons.
Yeah, hopefully, or maybe I'll have to actually do it in a different way that it doesn't cover everything.
That's right.
Be more creative with it. Okay. What was the first puzzle that you ever set, Zegrass? Or
So
Zegrass? Sorry.
I was watching CTC for like almost a year, I think, before I started studying anything. I set the first puzzle that I set like last September. So and then I started watching CTC during the pandemic. So I watched it on and off, and I really liked the puzzles, and it seemed a little bit sort of unreachable to me to be able to set a puzzle like anywhere. They seemed so good that I thought I could never set one anything like them. But at some point 159 became popular, and I guess it's my programmer's brain. I really liked the 159 constraint. I liked indexing, and I came up with an idea to do an every column 159, and I even wanted to call it 159, comma 234 678, so I decided to try that, and it's not the easiest thing to set. I don't know why that's like I didn't start with like an arrow puzzle or something. Yeah. But that is the first puzzle I said. It was called autoencoder, right? Because the puzzle sort of encodes itself. And
it's a very programming-like name as well.
yes, that's right. I think it's a type of neural network. Anyway, so I called it autoencoder, and it took me a while to set, like maybe a couple of days, just because I wanted it to be really sparse too. I have, as I think I might mention later in the conversation, I try to like impose all sorts of unnecessary constraints on my puzzles that I just like setting within a very, very constrained space. I guess anyway, I won't go off on a tangent. The point is that I wanted to make a very sparse puzzle with the 159 rules for every column, and it took a while to set because it broke like all the time. It broke in every imaginable way. And eventually I set it, and I was very happy with it. But yeah, that's the first puzzle I set.
And I think you had two versions of this puzzle, didn't you?
Yeah, so I set the puzzle, and then I put it in testing. I started to figure out how Discord worked and how you get puzzles tested. And Bremster, that's right. And then I found Bremster's channel, and he was like maybe on his third video or fourth video ever. And as soon as I looked there, I saw that Panthera had set a puzzle called 159234678. That exact name I was going to use. With the same
Good thing
rules.
You didn't use it.
That's right. With the same rules, and it was called it was like a thermo puzzle with those columns, with all column 159. And I was like, oh my god! I thought I was to come up with something so great and so original to do every column 159, and there's already like a better puzzle on Bremster's channel with the same rules, and it was like published 2 days before I set my puzzle. Yeah. So that was like my first experience of thinking that I've invented something and then discovering that it like has a name and people have been setting it for years. But Bremster, but Bremster really liked the puzzle, and he actually featured it. It was like his fourth or fifth video, and that was really amazing for me seeing how he solved it. But I also noticed that he found a way around my logical path that like shortcutted a lot of cool deductions I wanted him to make. So I changed one clue actually, and basically got rid of his shortcut, so made it slightly better puzzle. And that's the second version of it that I published. That's the one I ended up putting on LMD, which I also had to sort of learn at the time how to publish stuff on LMD. So that was my first puzzling experience, and it was really amazing because Bremster was just very generous with his time. Like, he featured my first puzzle, and that was just very cool. It was a very nice, like, warm introduction to the the really nice world of Sudoku people. It was
definitely great. Yeah. Did you find it like surprisingly hard? I mean, obviously you chose kind of a hard rule set to start with, but did you find it surprisingly hard or surprisingly easy to set a Sudoku?
That one was very difficult. I sort of got a sense that it would be easier to set other constraints while setting this one, but yeah, that one in particular was difficult to set. And I had to learn a lot of the basic mistakes that people make when setting, like while setting a very already difficult puzzle. So I think I made it about as hard for myself as I could have.
Were you solving a lot before you first set your puzzle?
I wasn't solving a lot. I had the rule, I think, that other people do with cracking the cryptic, which is, if Simon's video is less than 30 minutes long, then I try it. And if it isn't, then I watch it. At least that used to be my rule. Now maybe 45 minutes I'll try it. Anyway, and so I've been solving just basically CTC videos, and not much else. Maybe like the New York Times hard Sudoku, but just the classics.
Right.
And then I got the apps. Oh yeah, that's right. Sorry, no, I remember. I did get the apps back in the day from Cracking the Cryptic, and I solved those, and those were really great. Yeah.
Yeah,
So I did
definitely.
solve a bit, but not much. Not much. Certainly not like every day.
Right. Were you solving Sudoku at all before you watched CTC?
Only classics, and occasionally I was kind of bored with them. I thought that, and now I know why I was bored with them and why they weren't
Yeah.
that great. Is because they're not hand set. But I've went through like a phase where I would just solve classic Sudokus occasionally, like generally from the New York Times. Like that was my thing. Is I would read the New York Times. I'd go to the hard Sudoku puzzle and I'd solve that.
Yeah, it's actually really hard to tell, like, I guess normies that you're really into Sudoku because it seems like you're a wacko. Because
Yeah.
what people think when they think of a Sudoku is that, and it makes sense why people wouldn't like that. It's
Mhm.
it's not very likable, not to us, not to them.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I've had trouble explaining my sort of passion for it. In
Definitely.
the same way.
When did you said you first started watching CTC in a year before last September or something?
Yeah, well, it was whenever the Miracle Sudoku came out. Maybe I'm getting some of my dates wrong, but the Miracle Sudoku made it through. I think it's like everyone started, but the Miracle Sudoku exploded, and I think I heard someone on a podcast talk about it or something. This guy, a British guy, solves a Sudoku puzzle for 20 minutes and you can't look away, that type of thing. And that sounded impossible to me, and then I watched it, and and I really, and then I started like kind of watching CTC on and off, and then more regularly. Yeah, that was my way in.
Right. Let's go back for a second to the Bramster feature of your first puzzle. How did it feel to watch someone solve the puzzle, even if you didn't take exactly the same path?
It was amazing. It was like, it really was kind of like I don't know, whatever, like cigarettes or something. It's very addictive. I sort of didn't anticipate how much I would like seeing my puzzles be solved live.
Yeah.
But it's really great. It's a really great feeling. I really like it.
Definitely.
And the way he found like different paths through the logic was like annoying in one way, because I'm like, oh, he's not doing what I wanted him to, but in the other way it was like it was just, it was great. I loved watching it. And and I really didn't expect sort of, I expected my first puzzle. I obviously liked it, but I sort of knew that it's a first puzzle. No, it's not going to be anything special. I think it eventually got like a 89 LMD rating, which is about right. I mean, it's an okay puzzle. I think it's decent for a first puzzle, but that's about it. And then seeing it be solved and seeing Bremsters like it, that really encouraged me to set more. Like I don't even know. It might have been a one-off unless without the very strong Bremster reactions, which I really appreciated.
Definitely. I think it's really important to encourage first-time setters that like.
I definitely try to do that. I mean, whenever I don't, as I said, I don't solve as much as I would like to, but whenever I put a puzzle in testing, I usually grab 3 or 4 puzzles in testings, and especially ones that say, oh, this is my first puzzle, blah, blah, blah. And then I try to like solve it, give them some tips occasionally. I love to encourage new setters as well.
Yeah, it's great. That's also a great feeling. It's someone who you've encouraged like actually going and setting more and more. It's a great feeling.
And I've seen a couple of people sort of grow from that stage. It was great.
Yeah, definitely. How long did it take to get your first CTC feature from when you started setting?
So it was another thing that happened like rather quickly. I kind of like setting goals for myself when I'm doing something, especially that invests a lot of my time. And my sort of vague goal was, after a year of setting, sort of get good enough to have a CTC feature. It was a vague goal. I mean, I wasn't like specifically after cracking the cryptic features, although that was kind of like a dream. And it did happen rather early for me. It happened with my third puzzle, which was parity balance. So it was my, sorry, maybe it was my fourth. Yeah, no, it was my third puzzle or fourth puzzle. I don't remember. Anyway, it was early on. Yeah. And I think it got featured like maybe in October, and I started setting in September, so maybe 2 or 3 months into my setting.
November 8th,
November.
early November.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sure. So it's 3 months. 3 months into setting, I had a feature, and I did send this one in. It was the first puzzle I sent in. Um, I read about their rules about sending in one puzzle a month, and I've basically been sending in one puzzle a month since I started. And yeah, that was my first submission and got featured. I was shocked and very happily surprised. Yeah, I think I was in a work meeting and I said I was feeling sick, like so that I could go watch it. And yeah, that was awesome.
Was
I
it?
had a
Was
feeling
it?
I was going to get. I had a feeling I was going to get featured because I think I sort of got lucky. I think like sort of a lot of people do in setting land. I stumbled on an amazing break-in with parity balance, and it was such a good break-in that this was probably the puzzle that took me the longest to set because I just knew I had to make the rest of the puzzle as good as the break-in, and it took forever for me to get the rest of it to the same quality. So I knew it was a decent puzzle, and I knew had at least a chance of getting featured. So.
Did getting featured on CTC like feel, I don't know, different than getting that feature on Bremster's channel?
I mean, I don't want to take anything away from Bremster, but
No, of course not.
No, I mean, it felt like different because it was my sort of my goal. Like what got me started into Sudoku. There's a slightly different number of viewers and stuff. So yeah, no, I mean, I definitely I definitely love seeing Simon solve my puzzle. That was like my sort of like loose goal setting out setting. So
Yeah, and you
but I've
recently
had sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. I've had like 13 Bremster features at this point, and I loved each one of those. And generally, he tends to feature me first, and then Kraken Cryptic features the same puzzle.
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't taking anything away from Bremster. Bremster is amazing and a pillar of the community.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
he deserves more views.
That's right.
More attention. One day it will be Bremster's channel that people are like, I got a Bremster feature. Like, yay! Well, I'm sure they still are. I mean, yeah. First time setters.
I feel fantastic every time I get a Bremster feature.
Yeah. And you recently got your first Mark feature as well.
Yeah,
you've had several
last night.
Simon features.
I've had 9 Simon features, and last night was my first Mark feature, which was very cool. That was like a little checkbox I wanted to get. Yeah, I always send them in. I think someone mentioned that Simon tends to hoard some of the setters, and I sort of understand Simon's strategy for picking puzzles more than I understand Mark's. It seems a lot more sort of random, but it's actually kind of fun. I kind of like he will feature like some very interesting like strange ones, and then Simon features like if there's a puzzle that got 100% on LMD that like everyone's talking about, you can expect a Simon feature in like 2 days. But Marks are like mysterious.
Mm-hmm. Less expected, yeah. Less predictable.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking of different people who you get to watch solve your puzzles, who's your favorite person to watch solve your puzzles? Is there...
I mean, I think Simon, because, well, one thing is like the amount of hyperbole and like, this is a genius, this is like brilliant and amazing and fantastic. It's hard not to, sort of get the dopamine hits from that. But also, just he does have this way of finding amazing logic that I didn't even know I put in to my puzzle. Like in a few places he like found like really, I think there was like something obvious he could have done, and yet he found like this super clever thing that he gave all the credit to me for, which I like gladly took. So I still think Simon's my favorite. I do send things sort of to Bremster, Ranks, and Zeta, and I think Scott Strosell did a couple of mine as well. I hope that's how you pronounce his last name, by the way. That's the first time I think I said it out loud. Anyway, I mean, I like all those guys. Zeta, Zeta and Ranks with the live solves is cool. I do like the live solves because I'm always like fearful the person will get stuck and like do nothing for 20 minutes when it's like an obvious conclusion. And there's like insurance for that with the live stream. But yeah, Bremster's my first, and I always send like my puzzles to Bremster first, and then occasionally to Ringsk and Zeta.
Right.
Yep.
So something about your puzzles, which is makes them actually really good for featuring, is that they look beautiful. They're really pretty. Talk about aesthetics in your puzzles.
Thanks.
Yeah. Is that important to you?
Yeah, I don't know why it is, honestly. I mean, generally speaking, like, so my theory about it is that I don't know, maybe who it was that who talked about. I heard talk about this, but basically, any kind of creative project is made a lot better with a lot of constraints. Constraints actually really help the creative process. I definitely believe that. I'm kind of a bit of a perfectionist, so if you can put any clue in at all, then finding the best clue to put in becomes too large a search space, sort of. Mm-hmm. So working within really tight constraints, and the constraints like being symmetric or making a themed puzzle or having a nice picture, like they're artificial, and I will make exceptions. Like if I find some really cool deductions, maybe I'll change the whole aesthetic, or maybe I'll make an exception and put like an asymmetric arrow in somewhere. So I will make exceptions for really beautiful logic, but generally I like to be very strict on the on aesthetics, right. Only because I don't want to spend forever finding the ultimate sort of perfect piece of logic to put in, because I generally think there's plenty of good logic to be found in almost any puzzle, and having it constrained limits the search space. I guess that's my theory about it. But also, it's just for myself, I just really like pretty puzzles, so I want to make them. Like I just can't release one that has some ugly like thing going on, like, or doesn't have a pattern. And that isn't to say that I don't like solving puzzles that don't focus on aesthetics. Like I don't know, I really like Playmaker's arrow puzzles, and they're not trying to be symmetric or anything. They're trying to be logic focused. For example, that's just one example. And I really love his puzzles, but not for the aesthetics, but for the awesome logic. But yeah. Anyway, there's a lot of good. I mean, I find that a lot of puzzles that get featured, are at least symmetric, or the clues are arranged in a pretty pattern. There's a lot of other people I think that like aesthetics, but to me, it's like it's not even a choice. I can't release a puzzle that isn't pretty.
Right. So here's a weird question.
Yeah.
What does a nice looking puzzle look like? Like how do you quantify that? It's hard to say, right? It's kind of like that quote from some Supreme Court justice who said that pornography when you see it. I think a good puzzle when you see it. Okay. Yeah.
So it's hard to define, but you sort of know it when you see it, and right. I just go by like my whatever intuition. Yeah. So I mean, the things that are nice are symmetry. I usually like to do the diagonal symmetry, not like whatever x-axis, left to right symmetry, so that's nice. I mean, I have some puzzles that are like pictures of something, and those were I try to. And then, I mean, I think we're going to get into my riddle Sudokus at some point, so since I'm fairly known for them. But those have a whole like bunch of other constraints on them. But in those, like my rule was to never have any clue at all that's not related to the riddle, which is an insane constraint. But yeah, I think the prettiness just so minimalism, symmetry, and I don't know, just design. Like you can see that there's an intention, not just for the logic, but for the way something looks. So I think that's basically the way I could describe it.
So would you say something like Marble Run is a beautiful looking puzzle?
Well, so Marble Run, yeah. I mean, okay, that's I don't know if it's beautiful. So that one's more of a clever idea, I think. But even in Marble Run, I tried to make the cages sort of the same shape, and that is such an unnecessary constraint for that puzzle. It would be so much easier to sort of like not worry about having symmetrical cages, and just like because there's already a lot going on in that puzzle, and yeah, it would have been nice to not worry about it, but I just can't help it. I have to. So I actually do like the way that Marble Run looks and Marble Madness, the two Marble Run puzzles, because they have symmetrical cages. The grid is mostly filled, and I try to make the marble and the hole look okay, and I think you can sort of visualize it. Yeah, so I'd say that's a pretty puzzle. It's probably not like the most pretty I have, but yeah.
It's a pretty idea, I think. So it redeems a bit of
Yeah. Marble Run came from I don't know. This is a bit of a tangent, but Marble Run came from
tangent, please.
Okay, yeah. So I set 2 of the puzzles for the current Patreon snake pack, the December snake puzzles, and I was trying to come up with a rule set for snakes that I haven't seen before, and I came up with the whole killer cages, but the cells that are on the snake do not contribute to the sum. Yeah. And then I tried to do that for the snake. So I made 2 snake puzzles with that rule set. Essentially, it's just a killer Sudoku with a snake, and the snake cells don't contribute to cage sums. It's a very simple rule. I think I like it because it's like you can read it in one line, and it's obvious. And it's really fun to push around the snake by like forcing it with the cages. And then I literally was playing Marble Run with my daughter. She has a Marble Run. We got it for her birthday. Like the toy where you make the marbles go and stuff.
Yeah.
And it occurred to me that the motion's kind of like a snake, and I just made that snake puzzle. So I just converted it. I mean, Marble Run is basically a snake puzzle.
Yeah, basically.
Where it can touch itself orthogonally. But I love the idea of like putting kind of like a physical thing into a Sudoku where it's you can sort of visualize the marble running down.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So.
Physics is cool in puzzles to think about. So I've
been thinking about a lot of more physicsy like variations on Marble Run, trying not to make the rule set too complicated. But it occurred to me that you can encode a Marble Run with just where the hole is on each row, right? So there's just one, because it falls through one hole in each row. You could potentially encode it as one of the columns. So one of the columns could be the location of the hole, and that would determine where the Marble Run goes. And that gives you an interaction between both the Marble Run, the rules. Like the Marble Run can still cancel like cages or other clues, make them wrong or wrong. And still you could have a column that also encodes the location of the holes. That's kind of one variation that I've been working on. I think that's a cool idea.
That is definitely a cool idea. Yeah.
Anyway.
You definitely need a lot less clues to get things to work out. So. Yeah. Definitely cool.
But it's more like more putting physics and like real world into Sudoku. Like, I just kind of like that idea. It tickles me. So anyway, yeah.
Yeah, or
like
even
what I'm currently working on.
Or even you could say this section of the like floor, or like this is not a hole, like.
Right.
Sort of
right. Exactly.
Yeah. Lots of cool
or
stuff.
Or you have 2 columns that encode holes, and then there's 2 holes, but it has to fall through the first one. There's a couple of versions I'm playing with.
That is very weird.
Yeah.
Well, let's actually talk about, because I think I do have a question. Like, what are you working on right now? So. So what are you working on right now? What puzzles?
I think I think I've heard other setters in their setter videos mention this, but I do have like a big for me it's just a text file of ideas that I like pull out and play with occasionally. And yeah, there's like dozens of rule sets and I don't know, logic ideas. And I usually just have the idea and then a basic idea and then a link to F puzzles where the basic idea is sort of instantiated. And I probably have maybe 30 or 40 of those. And then I randomly pull one out, see if I can do anything with it. If it's not going anywhere, I just sort of put it back on the shelf. The thing I'm working on right now, there's like maybe 4 or 5 puzzles I'm sort of actively working on, but I keep switching between them. And so yeah, there are a couple of Marble Run variations is since they seem to be popular, I kind of want to strike while the iron is hot. And then I got I think I had entropic lines 159 that I'm working on. That looks to be pretty cool. I had a nice idea because the secret about 159 puzzles is that the first column is entropic, meaning each number has to come from a set of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7, 8, 9. So you have sort of the entropic idea already in 159, so I thought it'd be fun to make a 159 entropic puzzles and use that deduction. So that's like another one I'm working on. There's some normal ones, like I think I have a simple whispers one I'm working on as well.
Pure whispers. Interesting.
Mm-hmm. It's one of my favorite constraints, I think, is German whispers, incidentally.
Yeah, I was just joking because I've said in the past that pure whispers is like my least favorite Sudoku variant, like pure.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's always the same. It's the same puzzle over and over again.
Oh, you have to find ways to make it creative. I'd say like any constraints are like, there's only so much you can do with arrows, but people keep finding ways to do more and more, I think. Anyway.
Fair enough, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
If you come up with some new logic in Dream Whispers, like I would be so impressed, even more impressed if you found new logic in Whispers than in
oh yeah, Riff
Arrows.
just said Region Some Whispers. That sounds really good.
Yeah, Region Some Whispers. He's made a few of those for sure.
Mm-hmm.
So let's talk about innovation, because you've been quite innovative, even from just the beginning of your Sudoku setting career, from the riddles to the like autoencoder or the box 159 or even the parity bounds. Like you're always like trying to come up with new ideas, and sometimes they already exist, but a lot of the times it's something that you thought was new or you think is new.
Yeah, thanks. It was probably so. Right before I started setting, I watched a couple of the setter videos on cracking the cryptic, and the biggest one for me was Clover. By the way, just the philosophy of setting puzzles and like designing a solve path that's rewarding. And I if anyone asks me for how to set, I always send them the Clover setter video. That's my favorite. But I think it was Demono's. I'm not 100% sure, but I think Demono's was the one that mentioned that you should come up with new rule sets because then you're the only expert in it, and everyone's got to like start from scratch. And I do find that like setting a really great creative German Whispers puzzle is a very difficult task because, as you say, like there's only so much you can do with them. But if you come up with something like some new constraint, then everyone's starting at the same point, and it's easier to find new logic because no one's touched it before. So a lot of it is like making it easier for myself to make something original. And the other thing is just I guess I just like to think of the space of all possible constraints and see where there's sort of missing pieces. I mean, I don't know. I think rule sets come to me easier than puzzles. Yeah.
How many untapped rule sets do you think you have?
I have a couple. I made a parody mirror some time ago. It was featured. I really like that puzzle. And there's a couple of. I think mirror is actually a really neat idea. There's a couple of different mirrors. Like I don't. By the way, I just want to be clear. I don't mind saying these constraints if anyone wants to set with them. There's no higher compliment to me if somebody sets a puzzle with one of my constraints. Even if it comes before my first puzzle with that constraint. I think Rumplaner and Jeremy Dover set a couple of puzzles with a constraint I came up with, which was keypad lines, which is an okay constraint. I was kind of hoping it would catch on more than it did, but that's okay. But they set a couple of puzzles, and they were like very respectful, like, oh, we're not going to publish any puzzles until you publish yours, and I was taking kind of forever to set mine. And I just kept saying like, no, please set all the puzzles you want. I'm not proprietary about my constraints. I want them to be used because I think they're a good idea. Anyway, but I think there's a lot of puzzles to be found in the parody mirror style. So I was thinking of a crop key mirror. Basically, so any numbers that are consecutive on one side of the mirror have to be consecutive on the other side of the mirror, essentially. And you could do that with consecutive or black dots, or ratios, and maybe XV, same type of idea. I actually think the mirror constraints are really cool. I've been one of the puzzles I'm also working on is another parity mirror, straightforward parity mirror
Right.
puzzle.
Uh,
Yeah, so but generally like about coming up with new constraints and the riddles, I mean I have an idea and I run with it, and a lot of times my ideas are sort of more about new constraints than they are about cool things to do with existing constraints. And that's
Right.
just because I don't think I'm as experienced as a lot of other setters as a solver or as a setter. So like maybe something that would occur to me as being original is not actually as original, and I'm aware of that.
right. Is there any constraint that you came up with that you feel like you would love to see more of from other setters?
Yeah, I mean, my number one for that is Marble Run. I really
Right.
think that there's variations on Marble Run that would be really, really fun to see. And it's a recent one, so maybe, it's just the one I like the most because it's the most recent. But I do love the idea a lot, and I do think there's like I really want to see, I don't know, Zeta Math or whatever. The mono, any number of setters. It feels bad naming any setter because like I'm giving out 100. Like whatever, a Tallcat Marble Run puzzle would be really cool to see, I think.
You're telling me I with this series.
Yeah, you must have that, you must have that trouble.
Leaving out anyone is yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, so I do want that would be cool. I mean, the parody mirror is neat, but that one's a little bit more like constrained. Like you can't do that much with it. There's a lot of like parity logic that you can use, but I do still think like the space of possible parity mirror puzzles is not very large, but the possible space of variations on Marble Run is very large, because essentially you could make a Roggen. Marble Run can enable you to do Roggen rules, where wherever the marble passes, the rules don't apply essentially, and then the encoding of the holes is yet another idea. And putting those three together like opens up a pretty large space of snake type Marble Run puzzles. And then you might, maybe the marble doesn't always go down. Maybe like an arrow can push it back up or something.
Yeah.
And I just like the idea of combining sort of like a mazy type of logic with Sudoku with ambiguous constraints. So I just think that's a large space, and I'd love if someone else made some Marble Run puzzles. And I'll try to encourage it by making more good ones and hopefully getting them featured. Because Simon and Mark tend to like them.
Well, you've done a good job of that so far, I think. Marble Run with portals. Oh god.
Yeah, exactly. That would be awesome. Yeah, I want anything like that. Sounds good to me.
You said a few times that you feel like you aren't as experienced as other setters, and I did notice that this was a kind of surprise to me that you started not long before like the 159 craze. So it really wasn't all that long ago. It was a year and a few months ago, but still, it feels like it was yesterday for me for some reason.
Yeah, same here.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's over a year that I've been setting. But I just don't set very much. I maybe set a puzzle every 2 weeks to a week, and I mean that's it. I definitely do not spend a lot of time setting, and I feel like jealous of the gas setters, Philip Newman and Clover and Capram Alliance, because they must be like, there's a lot of truth to like if you do something a whole bunch, it becomes like automatic to you, and like you kind of like all the stuff I'm worried about will drop away, and I'll just focus on the high level stuff, and like somehow we'll have been designing the ending before I even start. I would love to have sort of enough experience to like set as much as I would want to, or like realize my ideas more easily. But for me, it's like it's a bit of a struggle. Like almost any puzzle I set is time consuming. There's only a couple of puzzles that I sort of magically set in an hour. Yeah, so I do wish I had more time for Sudoku, but it's life's in the way. So I don't feel like I'm as experienced. I think like a lot of setters set more than I do, and I do feel a little jealous of that.
Do you feel like if you didn't have so many obligations, you would be almost like setting every day? Are you that sort of personality?
I think so. I don't know. I mean, I do have like other interests and stuff.
Right.
I don't know if I could really just set every day, but I do love it. I mean, yeah, I would set a lot more. That's for sure.
Well, clearly you find enjoyment in in setting. Do you find more enjoyment in setting or solving puzzles?
Um, well, so if I'm solving a really really great puzzle that's not out of my league, then I enjoy it very much. But I still think when you find just the right sort of thing, or you discover just the right kind of logic that's your own sort of for your own puzzle, I think I still prefer setting. But I do like solving. I like solving good puzzles a lot.
Right.
Gas makes me feel so happy. I solve gas. I don't think I miss gas. That is the one thing I do solve every day. And gas is right because it's just so, it takes me very little time to do it. So it's not a huge investment. And it makes you, it makes you feel smart. So that's great.
Right. And then the follow-up to that would be, would you set puzzles even if no one would solve them, or if you were the last person on Earth, for example?
Absolutely not. I remember, I think it was Clover that said that, right? That she would do that. And yeah, no, I couldn't disagree more. No, I mean, part of the setting for me is the experience of other people solving it. There's like, I imagine other people solving it as I set it. I mean, it's very, like, that's like my most important part of my process is like constantly visualizing the solver at this point and trying to imagine all the things they could have already in the grid versus what I already have in the grid. And like, so I guess the model is not good enough for me though. I need to know that there will be real people actually doing it and enjoying it. Like I imagine it, so I mean I get some entertainment out of that, but I really do like the the LMD, like putting it on LMD and seeing reactions and features if I get those. That's always great for me.
Right. Sorry, just brain collapse for a second.
No problem.
Okay, moving on. I had a thought, and now it's gone.
No, that happens to me all the time. I just read Riff Clown's comment that learning from a failed set is an invaluable lesson. And I have so the only puzzles I haven't published that I've made, I publish basically everything I make. And as I said, because I don't set very much. But the few I have, the 2 or 3 puzzles I haven't published are all set puzzles that nobody could solve, basically, except for Sonic Person who solves everything. Yeah, I was like my second obsession after 159 was set puzzles, and I really wanted to come up with creative sets, but I just can't figure out how to telegraph them well enough. I try to do it as much as I can in my titles. My titles, like I spell out like pretty much what you're supposed to do. Like at least I think so, but there's still no one can solve those set puzzles. So I haven't even published them because I think the ideas are pretty good, but I need to come up with a way of telegraphing them more. Anyway,
I actually noticed that your second, or I guess maybe third, if you count the second version of autoencoder, was you published it to LMD, but then you deactivated it after a while. It was like X.
Yeah, Ex Nihilo. Yeah, that wasn't a set puzzle though.
That wasn't a set puzzle.
So Ex Nihilo. I could say because it was sort of the puzzle that so I sort of didn't have the experience of making a bad puzzle with my first one. I think autoencoder is a decent puzzle. Right. I saved that for my second puzzle. My second puzzle, this one, which is Ex Nihilo, is bad in my opinion. It's not a good puzzle. So the rule set here, and I also came up with this rule set and then discovered it even has a name. This is called equal Sudoku, where the sum of the odd digits equals the sum of the even digits.
Right.
Inside a cage, sorry. In every cage, the odd digits and the even digits sum up to the same number. So I thought I invented it. It's actually called equal Sudoku, and there's great puzzles like Colot, I think, set one. And there was a few other. There was actually one featured on the channel before the Miracle Sudoku, so I wouldn't have seen it. Anyway, and this puzzle, like, it had a very cool idea in it. It's about those corners. There's a 7-cell cage and a 3-cell cage, and that limits what the last cage, the one in the corner of those 2 boxes is. The one that's outside of those. And there's no way that you can figure that out unless you sort of write every possible version of what the cage, what could be inside the cage. And basically, I think I had like 8 solves, and those were all sort of me trying to get people to solve them. like actively recruiting on Discord. And I thought this was a great puzzle, and it, in retrospect, it's a terrible puzzle, and I sort of learned a lot from it. But yeah, it's not a good one. It's not a good puzzle. It doesn't have an enjoyable solve path. It's like it doesn't have the things that Clover recommended against in her center video, which is that it doesn't reward accomplishments. It doesn't. Yeah, it's like I learned a lot of lessons of how not to set a Sudoku from this puzzle. That's why I deactivated it actually. But this puzzle is the one that inspired me to do parity balance, which was my first feature. Parity balance, which was my first feature, which is also an equal Sudoku. And that one is really good, and I like hopefully learned all the mistakes from this one to make a better puzzle.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's very, very valuable to set bad puzzles.
Yeah, for sure. I like the name Ex Nihilo. It's a Sudoku X. So there's got the X in the middle,
right.
And Nihilo, means zero, and all the cages sum to zero if you sum the negatives and the odds and the evens. And there's also a little zero in the middle too. By the way, the middle digit is 5 because if the odds and the evens, that's the real beginning, is you can put a 5 in the middle. And I use the same step inside of parity balance. Because if you sum up the odds and the evens inside of a box, the odds are 5 higher than the evens, so the middle's got to be a 5. That's a nice little deduction. I like that. That was my introduction, but everything after that is way harder and unnecessarily so.
Right. Nice to give a little bit, but it's nice to keep going as well. Of course. Okay, so let's talk about the elephant in the room. Directionary had asked, "What's your inspiration for incorporating riddles into Sudoku?"
Sure. Yeah. So let's talk about riddles. It's funny. Simon always says that, and I know Sergey I know Zegrass from the riddle Sudokus. I have like 6 non-riddle and 4 riddle features now on CTC, and I mean I said 4 riddle puzzles ever, and the fourth one is arguably not quite a riddle, but anyway. So I like riddles. I mean I think there's probably a large overlap with people that like Sudoku and people like riddles. When I was a kid, I would spend a lot of time at my grandparents' place when my parents were working, and my grandmother had a whole bunch of riddle books for like kids, and I did love solving those riddles. She would like sort of tell me to go solve riddles while she would cook whatever lunch or something. So yeah, so I solved a lot of riddles when I was a kid, and then early on when I came to America, I listened to a lot of car talk in the car. I don't know why. It was like sort of my way of learning English. But I listened to a lot of Car Talk. Car Talk is an American public radio show where these 2 MIT graduates that are just really silly, and they run a garage, and people call in and they make fun of them, and then they tell them how to fix their car. And it was a great NPR show back in the day, National Public Radio show. Sorry, and they did a riddle question every week that they would phrase in some very funny way, and then next week they would give you the answer, and I absolutely loved they had really great riddles on that, and I think the light bulb Sudoku one is inspired by one of the riddles I heard on Car Talk, and I think the zombie one, so both of those riddles I heard on Car Talk.
Cool.
They were friends with Martin Gardner, I believe, so he actually sent them riddles at some point. Martin Gardner is a very famous riddle person, mathematician too. He's probably more famous as a mathematician, but he made a lot of riddle books. So and he was friends with the Car Talk guys.
Nice.
Anyway, so I love riddles. That's the point. And then what occurred to me is that I was at some points just like wanting to make really, really. He did pass away recently. Sorry, there's a comment from Nell about that. He did pass away recently, Martin Gardner. There was sorry, I forgot what I was talking about. There was a I totally lost my train of thought. I think we're 1 for 1 now, Rester.
No one's keeping score.
Yeah.
So.
Oh yeah, so it occurred to me that like I really wanted to make sparse grids. That's another like thing I like,
Yeah.
and it occurred to me that like maybe in the rule set you could sort of indirectly put some numbers into the grid. I was thinking that
Right.
kind of for a while, and I think so. It's a combination of things. I also saw Rocky. I think it was Rocky Rower that made the Sudoku, or it was a Clue, Cluedoku. Sorry, it was like basically
Yeah,
Clue, the game of Clue, and Sudoku that was featured on CTC. That was an awesome puzzle. I really love that one. So that one was very meta, and so I was thinking about meta puzzles, and I don't know how I got so the first one I said was the one with the three doors, the lady or the tiger, and yeah, I think I was there really wasn't any one thing. I just kind of came up with this idea of finding an alternate way of putting digits in the grid, and then like some kind of riddle naturally occurred to me, and that one in particular is a I think in the video for solving Lady or the Tiger, Simon mentions that he knows the book that the riddle came from, and my grandmother had that book in her house, and I did read it, and then I solved those riddles when I was a kid. The Lady or the Tiger, there's I think 9 or 10 riddles like that, where there's like some signs are true, some signs are lying, and they're pointing to different doors, saying which one's got the lady, which one's got the tiger. So
Right.
yeah, I came up with that, and then I started drawing doors on the grid in various ways and playing around with how to incorporate the idea of the riddle into the grid, which is basically I think I just said the lady was 1, the tiger was 9, and behind the door you couldn't have a lady if the tiger was there, and you couldn't have a tiger if the lady was there, so you couldn't have a 9 behind the door, which was a cage on the grid, or you couldn't have a 1 that way. So yeah, I just kind of natural, like I didn't sort of like have an idea, I should put a riddle in the Sudoku, but that one worked so well. I sort of had this like fairly approachable Sudoku. It was a fairly easy Sudoku, and you had to solve the riddle in order to solve the Sudoku. You had to put like all you had to know was that the 9s couldn't go behind doors, and then you could solve the Sudoku from that point.
Right.
Behind 2 of the doors, and which 2 that they couldn't go behind, and then the rest of the Sudoku solved. The one thing about that puzzle is when Simon featured it, he made like a diagram of the riddle, which is like he actually drew a picture of 3 doors with the signs above them, which like if I was ever annoyed at a Simon video, that was that, because the Sudoku grid I made had the signs above the doors. They were the arrows. The arrows were actually the signs. They had 9s in them, and they pointed to wherever the doors said the signs go. But a lot of people actually missed that. I actually changed the description of the puzzle to like make sure people saw that in the future. But because of the way I said that puzzle and how clean it was, how basically all the rules of this riddle were inside the Sudoku grid, and there was nothing else. It was kind of a very clean. A clean Sudoku grid with nothing but the riddle in it, and also the riddle was very relevant to the Sudoku, like in some way. So the doors and the tigers, etc. So yeah, it just worked out that way, and then I wanted to try another one, and so I went for one of my favorite riddles, which is the light bulb Sudoku. That is one of my all-time favorite riddles. That one came from Card Talk, and I sort of like. I give this riddle to like other people that like riddles because it's a nice kind of not too difficult, not too easy, fun riddle. And yeah, and that was probably the second longest Sudoku that I've ever set, because that was incredibly constrained. Because I wanted to have nothing except for just the corridor with the light bulbs in the grid and nothing else, and except for the arrows that point the way. And that was so little to make a Sudoku work. To make a Sudoku unique, all you have is the placement of the light bulbs that you have to figure out from the riddle, and like 4 arrows. So it took forever. It took forever to settle. It took so much experimentation to get it right.
Definitely.
But yeah, so the idea, like I sort of have loose rules for how the riddle Sudokus work, which is that you have the minimal amount of things in the grid other than just the visualization of the riddle, and the most important rule is that the riddle has to somehow be connected to the Sudoku. So it can't be arbitrary. You don't sort of have the riddle and then separately have the Sudoku. They have to be connected in some like serious way, like in that you know the dynamics of the Sudoku have to be similar to the dynamics of the riddle, sort of.
Yeah, I liked how you could almost, for like the zombie one or the light bulb one, you could almost take notes within the grid.
Right.
I like that because then you can visualize the riddle better. It's better than like sitting down with a riddle book and trying to visualize it in your head. You actually have like almost a big notepad of what this thing is, and you can think about it.
Yeah, that's cool. I mean, I love that. That's definitely true of the riddle one. You could solve, the light bulb one. You could certainly solve the light bulb puzzle just by experimentation. For instance, you can like work it out right on the grid. Same with the zombies and the Lady or the Tiger to some degree.
Yeah.
My fourth riddle was the time to think outside the box, which was more of a visual riddle, like what shape goes in box 5, and there's other shapes in the grid. It's kind of a sequence puzzle. I got it. I took it from a sequence puzzle where the missing number was like 7 or something instead of 5. But it's just I don't want to spoil the riddle, but it's a sequence puzzle where you have to figure out what shape is in the box. It's kind of like it's more visual, and I do have crop key dots, which are sort of not relevant to the riddle. So I did cheat a little bit there, I think, as far as my own rules go. But it was a very nice Sudoku and a nice riddle. So I was happy with that one.
Ron Planer had asked, I guess the question is, do you still solve riddles and logic problems regularly that do not involve a grid?
I wouldn't say regularly, but like some of my friends and family like riddles, and they know I like riddles, so they will send me a riddle occasionally. Right. My grandmother, up until recently, would send me occasional riddles, just because she gets them out of newspapers. So I suppose I do solve them. I wouldn't say anything like regularly, but I do like riddles and I do solve them. I always kind of I worked in finance, and in finance, like you sort of hear about these interviews where they ask you riddles during the interview, and I've always kind of wanted that because I'm pretty good at riddles. I'm like, come on, give me some riddles. And every interview I've had in finance or later in tech no one's ever asked me a riddle. So I was always very disappointed. I'm like, come on, I want one. And no, never.
You're gonna ruin an interview by being like, "Give me a riddle, come on."
That's right. That's right. I only came here for one thing: a good riddle. Yeah.
I don't even want the job.
I legitimately was thinking of applying to Google just for fun to see if I would get in, but also because to see what their interview process is like. I don't want to work for Google, but
yeah.
I was like legitimately thinking of just trying to go through the interview process. Anyway, sorry, that's a side note.
No worries. This is an interesting question from Woofer ZFG. Get very careful with that name now that I know how to pronounce it. Yes,
it's a very easy name.
Well, I always say Woofer's FG. Yeah. What's your process for coming up with an idea for a new puzzle? Is it something that you do well, sort of doing other things like Sudoku, shower thoughts that I've said before? Or do you use a tool like F-Puzzles or Penpa and search for inspiration?
So most of my ideas come from like the Sudoku shower. I just randomly when I'm doing other things, I like come up with an idea. Yeah. That's right. But occasionally I do sit down and play around with F-Puzzles, and mostly if I do that, I come up with something that looks pretty, and then I see if there's any neat logic in it. So that's the only way I sort of use, like I play around with F-Puzzles that way a bit. I saw your video where you, I don't remember what it was you set. It was very nice. It had like a between line and a Ranban. And I think it was you teaching how to set a Sudoku, or like going over how you set a Sudoku or something. And I really liked the way you played around with F-Puzzles to find interesting logic. So that might actually inspire me to do that a little more, if anything. But
I don't do that very often anymore, to be honest. That was something that I did a lot more earlier on. And that's so it's an easy way to get into coming up with ideas, but it's not something that I do anymore, which is why I sort of pushed that video a little bit further down the the list of videos in all the playlists and
Not
stuff.
anymore. Sorry about that.
No worries. I mean, it's a decent video. It shows, yeah. But anyways, continue.
Oh yeah, no. Most of my ideas just come from like whatever. I'm walking around. I'm like, and randomly an idea pops into my head, and then I write it down in my ideas list, and then I pull it out later when I have time to set. But very occasionally, I like the few puzzles I said that were very like I just got a puzzle in an hour. I think one of those is the snakes one, serpents in the stairs. I think it's called. That used to be my most solved LMD puzzle, like 120 solves or something, which was quite a lot. And that one I set in like maybe 40 minutes. It took me like 40 minutes to set and like maybe half an hour to solve. Just the first time. Basically, I was playing around with F puzzles, and I made this like I kind of thought that the arrows pointing at each other made a nice staircase pattern. When you did that, and I was like, well, why don't I make like a staircase on the grid? And then it occurred to me that like snakes going up the staircase would force some of the tips to be large and some of them to be small, and that might be interesting logic. So I was just playing around with that, and basically I had something like, I don't know, like 50 solutions or something from just a little bit of playing with it. And then I think all I had to do was add the two little sideways arrows. And that's it, and it was unique, and I solved it, and it was decent. So I published it. That was by far the quickest I've ever set a puzzle, and it was one of my most popular ones for a long time. So just got lucky. And then I had to spend more time than setting the puzzles, just getting the snakes to look like snakes with the little V's and the dots.
Yeah. Sometimes these things just happen, you know. It's great.
Yeah. So that's the few times that I've used F puzzles for inspiration, but generally it's an idea, a random part of the day.
Right. How do you come up with your puzzle names?
So puzzle names are like fairly important to me. I do care about them. I generally like to come up with some kind of pun or joke, or sometimes if I think that this is like definitely cheating, but sometimes if I feel like I haven't properly sort of telegraphed the break-in, I might put a hint in the title in some way. So I think I have a puzzle named Adventure and Excitement, and I spelled adventure with two A's, adventure, because it had an odd set in it. I mean, I have like many hints, so I think Time to Think Outside the Box, the riddle Sudoku I have, there are two hints in the puzzle about the way to solve the riddle, because the riddle's a little tricky. So I figured I'd get people to think about time, digital, on a digital clock, and outside the box, about things that could be outside the box. Those are both relevant to the solve. So and then sometimes I just sometimes I just like to put some kind of pun in. I think Sonic just asked if I got the idea from him for the adventure, and I think I did. I think I solved a Sonic puzzle called Add and Subtract, with add spelled AAD instead of ADD, and that did inspire me to sort of put in the set names to puzzles. I have one called Knuckle O Sandwich, which Knuckle O Sandwich is a fist, so that's supposed to be Fisto Sandwich. So I thought that was like a subtle hint to the
very subtle.
The set there. Yeah, I don't think anyone actually got that. But it makes me feel good. People don't have to get my puns for me to be happy. But yeah, so I have one of my unpublished set puzzles is called Test at Set, and that's a palindrome, and it's a palindrome set puzzle. That one made me happy. I do spend probably like a good, 20 minutes, 30 minutes thinking about puzzle names, playing around with ideas for those. Some of them are obvious, like Marble Run or Parody Mirror, but generally I like to come up with a good name.
Those are usually more the first puzzle in a rule set sort of name, I guess.
Yeah,
which is
right,
valid.
yeah.
Yeah.
Especially that's right. Yeah, generally, like if you want to introduce a constraint, that's a good way to do it. 30 zombies in 20 minutes. If you could click on that one, that's probably the most ridiculous use of a puzzle name that I've ever did. So that's a riddle Sudoku, and the name of the puzzle. So I had to put two little killer clues into this very minimalist grid in order to disambiguate the Sudoku, and I came up with a way of doing it inside the puzzle name. So the 30 and the 20 are part of the puzzle name, but they're also the little killer clues. So I was very happy with that.
Yeah, it's kind of cute.
Yeah, so but I do care about the puzzle names, and I do think about them for quite some time. I don't know where I come up with them. I mean, I sort of just I keep thinking about something until I'm happy with it.
Right.
My favorite, I think my absolute favorite puzzle name that I've had is the one from the Snake Pack, and it's called I Am Steve. And I don't know how much you want me to talk about the Patreon pack, the CTC Patreon pack puzzle, but it's there's like a joke in it, and it's also a name of a song that I like called I Am Steve, and and the joke is relevant to the I Am Steve part of it. So I really like that name. That's probably one of my, and that sounds ridiculous. I Am Steve. Steve is a good silly name for a puzzle.
Yeah, definitely
like
a good silly name. Which of your puzzles is most important for your development as a setter?
I think very, very clearly for me that is parity balance, my first feature, because to me, like the way I learned what not to do from Ex Nihilo, I learned like sort of the good techniques of setting from parity balance. And the reason for that is just because I really like the break-in so much, and I stumbled on the break-in, but I really like the break-in so much that I couldn't make a bad puzzle with it because I would have felt it was such a waste. So I spent a whole lot of time sort of polishing the solve path and perfecting it, like trying to teach the constraint while the solve path is going on. Like a lot that took a lot of work, and as a result, it definitely taught me a lot. And then it was also my first CTC feature, so for that reason, it's meaningful. So I'm pretty sure that's the clear answer there.
Right. The hard work paid off, so extra encouragement goes a long way. Do you often finish working on a puzzle and then realize maybe you need to change it, or after testing or something you need to change it?
So yeah, I've so it's basically always a case of is the idea or is the break-in good enough for the puzzle? That's generally like how I think about it. And sometimes I get lazy and like I just can't do it anymore and I quit. But generally speaking, I really like to, if I have a very nice idea, I sort of try to make a Sudoku that's worthy of the idea. And if I set the whole puzzle and then I just solve it and decide that it isn't, I'll restart from some point, probably. Yeah. That was your question, right? Sorry, I think I...
Yeah, that was it.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking of testing, do you still get all your puzzles tested publicly, or do you have maybe like a group of people who you privately send puzzles to test?
No, I generally put it in, Discord, whatever, puzzle testing. And I mean, if anyone solves my puzzles like regularly, it would be Sonic and Playmaker. I don't know why. It's not like I don't send it to them directly or anything. They just generally tend to be sort of regular solvers of my testing puzzles.
Right.
But no, I don't have like a designated tester of any kind. That sounds nice. That sounds luxurious.
Have you done any collaborative setting?
So I did do the fourth riddle Sudoku I made. Time to think outside the box. I did collaborate with Jeremy Dover. I think it was during the monthly prompt of collaboration which made me think of it, and then it used entropic lines And this was I didn't set an entropic lines puzzle before, and I know Rumpliner and Jeremy Dover set those all the time, and they're really good at those. And I think Rumpliner was busy, otherwise I would have like done one with both of them. But I sort of had the riddle part done, and the lines were more or less set. And then I needed to make a good Sudoku path with all the lines set, so using only crop key or only XV or something like that. And so me and Jeremy Dover sort of went back and forth trying to come up with different paths through the sort of already existing grid with the lines on it. Yeah, it was definitely a collaborative process, and we came up with like this one, which I think a lot more people liked the Sudoku than the riddle itself. Certainly, like Simon mentioned that, like the riddle was great, but Sudoku was better. And I think there's a lot of the fact that Jeremy helped me design this one, so that really helped. Yeah. So that's the only collaboration I had. I'm not opposed to it, other than just I'm generally time constrained. Like I was involved with the Snake Pack, which was like already kind of a team effort, but sort of it wasn't collaborative setting, more just working on similar puzzles and then testing each other's. So that was fairly collaborative, but not sort of. I have no objection to setting with somebody. That sounds fun. But yeah, I mostly I'm just time constrained. So if a person can work around my schedule, that'd be cool.
Was it different to collaborate with someone than to set on your own? Like,
yeah, it was hard for me not to be like very controlling and but part of it is that I do have I felt like ownership of the puzzle since because of the riddle, and so and again it has to be as good as the introduction, which is the riddle sort of thing. So I mean, if I was sitting with someone not as good, that would have been a problem. But Jeremy's a really good setter, so I didn't really have a problem. But I would probably be fairly controlling if I was collaborating. I mean, I'd probably have to learn to be better at that.
Right.
Not that I know. I don't know that. Though. Yeah. We'll see. Yeah.
In the future.
What? I'd love to collaborate with somebody. It'd be fun, I think.
Right. Is there anyone in particular that you're like, I would love to collaborate with this person?
There's a lot of good setters. There's like any number of setters you could like name. I'd love to collaborate with, like, and not just the ones that have appeared in these videos.
Right. Is there any sort of piece of advice you received early on in your setting career that really helped you and you want to share with other people?
Yeah, I mean, so I already sort of mentioned like a lot of my setting philosophy just comes from that Clover setter video. That was really, really important to me. It really helped me empathize with the solver, which your best sort of model for the solver is yourself. But like I try to look for what I like in a Sudoku and try to copy it. And the Clover video really tries to sort of design the path so that you get a realization, then you get rewarded from it. It make the solver feel smart. Like there's a lot of just really valuable advice there. I think that video in particular was extremely valuable for me. But yeah, no, I mean a few people like gave me advice and like, oh, like this is too difficult, or this is too unintuitive. Like in the setting channel, in the testing channel, and I always take that type of advice on board. But the thing that really shaped me as a setter was definitely that Clover video. That's kind of my core sort of set of ideas about how to set.
Right. Is there any piece of advice you often hear that you would disagree with?
There's like all kinds of setters. Just watching these setter videos, the philosophies are fairly different. And while I might like disagree with some of them, I really would hate for Sudoku setters to be more monolithic. I like the variety and the differences. I think that's actually like a good thing. I don't think I would disagree with anything sort of strongly enough. To like really like mostly I really like the variety of setters and opinions on what's important in the Sudoku. So no, I don't think I disagree with anything too strongly. I think with any advice.
It's funny that you
some just not might be for something just might not be for me.
It's funny that you phrase it like that, because you're kind of saying that you disagree with people giving advice and saying that's the way it has to be. Like,
Okay.
he's like,
Yeah.
it could be a variety of ways. Like you should do whatever you feel comfortable with, whatever advice like sort of hits you the right way, rather than taking on every piece of advice.
That works really well. Yeah, that's a better way of phrasing it. I think that's right. Yeah, my the thing I disagree with is that there's strict rules about what makes a good Sudoku.
Yeah, it's whatever you think makes a good Sudoku, essentially. Yeah.
Yeah.
How often do you go looking for puzzles to solve, and where do you look for them?
So I generally I look for puzzles to solve when I post my own because I feel like you gotta give. I feel bad, like I don't know, not solving as much. I know there's a solver shortage. That's like a well-known thing, and I feel bad like being time constrained. Like I'm not doing as much as I could be. So whenever I post a puzzle, I usually solve a few on LMD around mine, especially ones with that aren't graded or like are close to being graded. And then whenever I put a puzzle on setting, I solve a couple of the setter puzzles as a rule. And generally, I try to focus on either new setters or again something that has 0 solves. But not like if it's like a 4-page rule set, I just can't do it. Or if it's like a really complicated one, I'm like, if it's going to take me hours, I don't have hours. So, so I do, yeah. So I look for puzzles in those cases. I occasionally solve CTC video puzzles before I watch the feature, and I do gas every day for sure. Yeah, that's basically. And also, I solve some of Bremster's length. So on Bremster's channel, I sometimes solve the puzzle before watching the video.
Right.
If I have time. Yeah.
Right. This is an interesting question for you because you have 2 young kids at home. What kind of environment do you do you set in regularly, and then what kind of environment do you prefer to set in?
Well, I'm not one of these people that really needs, whatever, like some kind of Zen garden to set Sudoku. I don't mind with, noise and stuff around me. That's how I set, and I don't really need anything else. I can focus, like, for whatever reason, I have the ability to focus even though there's a lot going on around me, which really helps. And plus, I can just pop in headphones and listen to some music or something. Yeah, so I'm fairly easy. I don't need a special environment for setting.
Right.
Which is good because I couldn't get it.
Right, of course. How long does it usually take you to set a puzzle?
It varies very, very much. I think like almost, it's actually funny. Almost any puzzle that takes me forever to set is one that gets featured. So like, it's almost like the more I work on it, the likelier it is to be featured. Even if, it always feels like, even if it's like good, you just keep working on it for another hour and maybe that'll increase the chance that it'll get featured. They take me maybe, I don't know, 5 hours maybe is an average for the good ones. Yeah, they take me maybe 5 hours, I'd say. Like if I had to come up with some of them take 40 minutes, like that snake puzzle, and a few have taken me like days, like of pure setting time, but very few. I'd say a 5 hour per puzzle average is reasonable for me.
Have you ever set go ahead.
I was gonna say like Marble Run, for instance, like took me maybe 4 hours to set.
Cool. I was gonna ask, have you ever set non-Sudoku?
No. I'm interested in the pencil stuff, but I haven't even solved much pencil puzzles. I don't know. It seems like I don't want to learn another thing, just because I don't have time, and I know I would like it. So it's almost like I'm avoiding it because I don't like it'll stretch me even thinner. So I haven't set anything non-Sudoku. Maybe maybe when my kids go to college or something. Yeah.
Maybe in 10 years, we can dream. What's your biggest puzzling regret? Any puzzle you want to redo or take back?
There's I never think any puzzle is perfect. I just sort of like can't work on it anymore, and then I'm done. I always think I could polish it a little more. I have a bit of a perfectionist streak, as I mentioned, but I think the one I sort of regret the most, if I had one, is the Xbox one. which was one of my features. It's the problem I have there is it's got a very, very cool deduction in the middle. It has a neat break-in, but the coolest deduction is like somewhere towards the like 2/3 mark of that puzzle, and I just couldn't come up with a way to end it in a way that's like not too easy and not too hard. Basically, either the ending would be too difficult, and then the person would like make this brilliant deduction, and then they would just like have to grind more, and I didn't want that, or it collapses. And I went with collapsing, so like it basically collapses after that deduction.
Right.
And I remember, I think Simon said in his video that he was like, oh, like, well, this is easy. He just like filled in the grid in like 2 minutes after
Right.
the hard deduction with those 2 white dots actually on the vertical lines. There's a very neat idea there, but I really wish I could have found a way to make it not collapse, but still be like sort of satisfying. Maybe
Right.
put another little neat deduction in there. But I just like I've tried it for so long. Like I tried so many things that I can't do it, and I just published it. And I'm happy enough with the puzzle, but I really don't like that sort of. The ending does not live up to the rest of the puzzle. I think the most of the beginning is really neat, and then it collapses too fast. So that's
Right.
probably my biggest regret as far as Sudokus that I've published go.
What's your puzzling pet peeve? Is there something that other setters do that annoys you, or something in setting that really annoys you?
I have a couple of pet peeves. So this is like absurd. I'm not trying to be serious about it, but arrows need to point to something. It doesn't make sense that they're arrows. They might as well be thermos, because they what's the point of it ending on an arrow? There's no difference between the last cell of the arrow and the first one.
Right.
That's why one of my new rule sets was what's it called? Sum pointers, I think I called it, where the arrows have to point to another copy of the sum somewhere along the path of wherever the arrow is pointing. There's another version of the sum that the arrow sums to. That was a fun puzzle I made, and that's actually a good example where I think Mr. Menace made one of these, and it was featured, and that was a very the one that Mr. Menace made was featured on CTC, and it used the same rule set, and it was a really cool puzzle, and it made me feel really good that he used my constraint and got it featured, and got a very cool puzzle out of it. But yeah, that puzzle is pretty nice, and it's like all the arrows have to point to a copy of the sum. That was a neat idea. So my pet peeve is the arrows don't point to anything. They have to point to something. Otherwise, they shouldn't be arrows. Now let's see what else. There's a certain solver on LMD that is a pet peeve of mine, but that's a common one as well, I think. I just it like physically hurts me, those 1 out of 5s, which all my riddle Sudokus have a single 1 out of 5 rating, and they don't have that many solves, so like that brings down the averages significantly. And I do know who that is, and so that's another pet peeve of mine. Like his 1 out of 5 without a comment. Yeah, people who don't. Yeah, you know what? That's actually a better way to phrase it. That's not so specific to the one person.
Yeah.
I don't like it when people leave any kind of a bad grade without a comment. I am very welcome to criticism of any kind, and I might disagree with it, but at least I know what it comes from. I really hate like a bad rating or something without any comments. And a slightly smaller version of that is when I put a puzzle in the in a testing channel, the people that just do the check mark, like that I've tested this puzzle, that's not very valuable. That's a bit of a pet peeve of mine. I've never put the check mark without writing some comment. Like at least say it's good, or it's because the check mark is supposed to say that the puzzle is unique and not broken, I think is the point. But with solvers and with F puzzles, you sort of already know that the puzzle isn't broken. I mean, it's at least you should be like pretty sure that it's not broken before you put it in testing, unless it's a really weird new constraint. So the fact that just the check mark with no comment is another pet peeve of mine. I think so those are 2. Did I have another one? I think that's it. That's probably plenty.
I mean, I would probably say to the people who give the check mark without anything. I think the check mark is more for other people to know that the puzzle has been solved at least once, rather than for the setter to
right.
Yeah, confirm.
But that's worse actually, because then people see the check marks, so they see that, oh, this puzzle's been solved 4 times. But there's no comments about like anything like that should be fixed on it, or things you liked about it, things you didn't like about it. So there's no comments that I could use sort of to like tell me, well, is this like a nice puzzle or not? And yet there's 4 check marks, so no one else is going to solve it because it's been already solved 4 times. So anyway, sorry.
Yeah, I was agreeing with you. Yeah, I was saying that they're giving no value to the setter by putting a check mark. It's only that's only for the other solvers, essentially, is the only value. But you need to say something in order to benefit the setters. Like, you're not doing a favor by just putting a check mark.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I didn't understand. That's exactly right. Yep.
Yeah. We've had a whole 3-hour discussion on testing feedback and such at some point months ago, but yeah, that was a big point.
I think I missed that one.
Leave comments, please, on your testing. Anyways,
absolutely. I've never not left a comment. If I test a puzzle, like, that's already taking up my time. I might as well give the solver the setter what he wants, which is some commentary.
Definitely. And to go back to, I don't know why this. Oh, right, they came up because of the arrow pointing to things.
Oh yeah.
The pointing arrows. I think I've been calling it. I've made like, I don't know, even 4 puzzles with that rule set. It's a really cool rule set. Yeah. I don't know if I published all of them, but I published at least.
Were you inspired by the Mr. Menace puzzle?
Yes.
Gotcha. Yeah. Okay. That's good. That's awesome. I didn't see any of yours. I'll try them.
I don't know how many of them are on LMD.
I'm not sure if I came up with it. I mean, sorry, I do know that I came up with it, but I'm not sure I'm the first to come up with it. I've not seen them before I came up with it, and I did see a lot after Mr. Menace's. But.
I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, someone else, but I think CDWG posted on my most recent one that I published and said that this was actually an idea that was like way before. So I think it was an older idea, but obviously like we revitalized it. So, you know.
Awesome. Yeah, that never bothers me. It was like if I come up with a rule set, that's happened to me many times actually. There was the dots where the difference there are difference dots, but the difference is the value in the middle of the cell. So that's like a variant I came up with. But then again, there's like a bunch of glum hippo puzzles like that I then discovered that I didn't know about. I've come up with a bunch of rule sets that I thought were original, and then I discovered there's like awesome puzzles already that use that rule set. That makes me feel good. That's good.
Yeah. More to solve. Okay, so if you were to specialize in a single variant, what would you choose?
That's very, very difficult. I mean, I generally don't even use one variant. I mean, I don't think I have a single puzzle that's a single variant. I mean, I always use combinations or like the meta puzzles or all sorts of stuff. I don't know. I mean, maybe if I had to use one, I would use entropic lines because I think they're extremely flexible and you can do quite a lot with them. Or arrows. I mean, arrows are so powerful. You could probably do a lot with them. And I mean, thermos is another one that's like, but I don't like pure thermo puzzles as much. I think either arrows or entropic lines would probably, if I had to do a single constraint.
Yeah, it's a tough question for sure. It's not in the right mindset for the rest of like setting reality.
Yeah, I would hate to be limited to one constraint. That's the point. Yeah.
The Sonic person asked, "What are your favorite things about Sudoku?"
Yeah, I saw. And then there was someone else who asked, "What are my least favorite things about Sudoku?"
Yeah, Logan.
Well, I like Sudoku a lot, so there's not too many things I don't like. My favorite things about Sudoku are generally like the aha moments. I mean, you know, and it's almost like someone sending you a message, the setter, I mean.
Yeah.
When you discover something and you truly understand that this is exactly what the setter wanted me to see, and it's very clever. It's like someone showing you a trick. It's just that's a really great feeling. So those moments in Sudoku are definitely my favorite thing. When I truly understand the intention of the setter, and it's a very cool, clever thing that they're showing me. That's my favorite type of thing in Sudoku. And do you mind if I also answer the least favorite thing?
Oh yeah,
Since
go ahead.
that was another question that was on there. I think the least favorite is the complete opposite of that, which is when I'm solving a level 4 or 5 puzzle, say, and I just feel really, 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 really stupid. Because I can absolutely not understand what there is that I'm not seeing. That particular feeling is a very big low versus the very big high of that aha moment. So they're kind of related. I mean, the good and the bad is the aha versus I'm an idiot and I can't figure this out.
Exactly. Yeah, I feel like I'm getting more Stockholm syndrome in terms of the feeling like an idiot, feeling like there's some kind of weird high from doing stupidly hard puzzles and being like, I can't figure this out, but I'm enjoying it for some reason.
Oh, I see. Yeah. You're whatever, glutton for punishment?
Yeah, I guess so. I don't know. I didn't like it before, but it's developed over time.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes it's there, but you just can't see it.
I don't like it.
Yeah.
I mean, I like it when you have a lot of that, and then it leads up to the breakthrough, and then all of the previous ones was just a build up for the breakthrough. But if the breakthrough doesn't come, then it's just pure pain. And no, I'm not a fan.
Would you say your patience is very low for things like that, or?
No. I mean, so it's low when I get impatient with it when it's an unwarranted thing. If it's unfair, if it comes late in the solve, or like that type of thing, or when it's like well above the difficulty of the puzzle. Anything that I consider unfair, then that would annoy me. But if I'm going into like a hard puzzle, I think Colette is a good example of this. I'm a really big fan of Colette, some of Colette's puzzles, but they're so difficult. Probably the most like level 5 puzzles I've solved were from Colette. He died, like, I always think he's fair, but they are so hard, and I expect them to be hard. And then if I can't figure something out, I feel very stupid. But I don't get annoyed. I feel annoyed with myself, but definitely not annoyed with the setter. Yeah.
What's sort of the best piece of feedback you've ever gotten on a puzzle?
I mean, generally, like I've read some of the comments to the CTC video. So when I have a CTC video, there's a lot of responses and a lot more people solve it. I think as an interesting comment, I had one. So I make tiny URLs for my CTC links, and usually Cracking the Cryptic, they change the puzzle around a little bit, and they change the rule set a little bit, so to make it sort of their own brand or whatever. So they don't use your links. But one time they used my link on Tiny URL, so I saw how many clicks it got, and how many people solved the puzzle. And it was like 17,000, which is insane to me that 17,000 people solved my puzzle.
Well, at least clicked on the link.
Yeah, because, well, okay, fine, yeah, that's true. They clicked on the link. Maybe they didn't solve it, but it still has got to be like 10,000 that solved it. And that's, orders of magnitude more than any other puzzle, than my non-CTC puzzles at least. And I read the comments, and then people say like, oh, this made me smile. I had a smile on my face the whole time I was solving this. I had a bad day until I solved it. That type of stuff really, really makes me feel good. That's the best feeling, I think. As far as like feedback from other setters, I mean, having someone like as good as Mr. Menace, use the constraint I did. I think he was inspired by mine, even if it's older. He used my puzzle as inspiration for the one that he had featured, and I really loved that puzzle. That was a really great feeling that he used like my constraint to make an awesome puzzle. That was another really nice bit of feedback. Anytime Simon says I'm a genius, feels good. even
Right.
though it gives me like plenty of imposter syndrome. Yeah, yeah. That he Simon is very good at like the hyperbole and like making the setters feel good.
Yeah, definitely. It's everyone's dream to be loved as much as Simon loves Sudoku.
That's right. That's right. I don't know if my wife loves me as much as Simon loves Sudoku.
What's a question you want to be asked, and what's your answer to it?
I don't know if I have a question I want to be asked that you haven't asked me already. That's a good question. I wanted to say I guess as a bit of an anecdote, my daughter, who's 4, recently started, like, she sees a Sudoku grid on my screen sometimes, so she was curious about it. And so I started setting her 4x4 Sudokus for, like, on enough puzzles. It takes literally 10 seconds to set a 4x4 Sudoku. And she likes solving them, and that's and so she like sometimes says, "Papa, like, make me a Sudoku." That's a really nice feeling. So I suppose the question for that would have been like, are your kids interested in Sudoku? And the answer is yes. And my daughter solves 4x4 Sudokus. So that's a question that I'd like to be asked that I already answered. Yep.
Yeah. We've talked a little bit about specific puzzles that you've made that had a big impact on your setting, but is there any puzzle that you solved that had a big impact on your setting process and how you view puzzles?
Oh, that's a good question. The one that I haven't mentioned yet, and this is actually you're actually a good person to bring this up with, because one puzzle that had a really big impact on me was on CTC a while ago, and it was a hidden thermos puzzle. And I think it's called the Eureka Sudoku. At least the YouTube video was called that. And you said one similar to that. It was a Renban Thermo one, and that was really good too. But the original one, it had like a thing in the middle where it looked like it was impossible, and Simon had to call Mark about it, and verify that the puzzle wasn't broken. And it had this like very cool riddle type of dynamic in it. And that was part of what inspired me with the riddles too. I just wanted to give that credit. But that puzzle really made me start thinking about like the meta stuff a lot.
Right.
And the Rocky Rower, and I'm not sure if it was Rocky Rower, but I think it was that Clue Doku one. That one also had a really big impact on me. The game of Clue inside the Sudoku grid. I'm 90% sure it was Rocky, but I'm not 100%.
I think it was either Rocky or it was now I can't remember his name, but he made the Frogger Sudoku. I think it was either him or Rocky.
Yeah, you know what? It might have been the person that made Frogger, but I'm not sure who made Frogger.
Ricky Cruz.
It was Ricky Cruz. It was Ricky Cruz. Ricky Cruz and Rocky Rower are similar sounding names. I think you're right. I think it was Ricky Cruz.
There's both R with the CK and the Y. Yeah, it's Ricky, Rocky, very close together.
That's right. Yeah. You know what? I changed my mind. I think it was Ricky Cruz that said the Clue one. But yeah, I love the idea of meta puzzles and like just like I hosted a monthly prompt on the CTC Discord for people, and then the prompt was riddle Sudoku, and like, but basically the idea is I just like other things, like putting things in the grid through other means. I just like I like the idea of meta puzzles, generally speaking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Have you ever thought about?
And those were very inspirational to me for that, because I wasn't thinking about it until I saw those couple of puzzles. Frogger 2 was a very good one. Monopoly 1. Monopoly 1 kind of worked a similar way. All of these meta puzzles I particularly like.
A lot of meta puzzles show up in like a pack or something. Have you ever thought about making a pack that leads to some kind of meta puzzle that is all meta in that kind of way? Or
I'd love to set a pack, but I definitely don't have time to set a pack. Seeing how much work Diane Fletchman had to do on the cryptic, whatever, Scriptures of the Snake Society, Secret Snake Society pack. I saw how much work he had to do for that, and that seemed very intimidating. So I'm certainly not going to set a pack by myself, but participating in a pack is cool. So I definitely liked setting the snake puzzles for the pack that's out now. which is really great. Everyone should solve it. There's some really cool puzzles there. Only 2 of them are mine. There's some awesome ones by Dad Jokes and okay, I don't know how to say his name. Peter, I guess. Yeah, Peter, right? Prochiv.
Yeah, you can just say
Sorry,
Peter
I
Venus.
feel bad about that. It's Peter, right? Yeah.
Yeah, Peter Venus. Yeah.
Okay, good. That's
Yeah.
what I thought. Okay. And Rumplener and Dan Fletchman. I'm probably forgetting someone, but there's some really great puzzles in there.
Yeah. I haven't solved it yet, but once I get around to it, I think it'll be good. Snake puzzles are always fun, so.
Yeah, I've always wanted to set a snake puzzle, and now I evolved to the more marble run stuff, which is really fun. So, yeah, which
Right,
are snake puzzles.
Yeah, basically. Just
Mhm.
shh, because it seems so original, but
Yeah, no, they're definitely just
Yeah.
snake puzzles.
there's like
In fact,
a
they're more. Sorry, go ahead.
yeah. It's kind of like you can touch yourself with agony, but you can't go back up if you go down. It's like this weird extra constraint that
Mhm.
it's interesting.
It makes them a lot more constrained, and it makes it kind of easier to set because. And I have to say, like, I've set 3 now. I mean, I have one I haven't published that I might actually refine a little bit, but I've set 3 all with the same rule set, and they are really not hard to set, and they're fun to set, I think. And there's just plenty of logic there that you can play with. And the fact that they're not snakes that can go anywhere, it makes it a lot easier to set because you just sort of don't have to like worry about them going in 4 directions. It's only 3 directions. that makes a big difference, though.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And there's the whole like you have to get the row and stuff, which is really interesting.
The encoding thing. Yeah, I'm excited about that.
Let's do the rapid fire questions. So one answer the other as fast as you can.
All right.
Local or global deductions.
Local.
Coloring or good living.
Coloring.
Geometry or arithmetic.
Geometry.
Pempa
Although
or
I like both, but geometry.
Yeah.
Geometry. Sorry.
Pempa or F puzzles.
No contest F puzzles.
Okay. Sudoku or pencil puzzles.
Sudoku.
Yeah, we already covered that bit. Chaos or order.
Order. No, just kidding. Chaos. But I just don't like chaos for Sudokus, just to be clear. In general, chaos. In specifically on Sudoku, order.
Okay. That was a very chaotic answer. Cages or lines.
Lines.
Arrows or dots.
Arrows.
To disambiguate a puzzle, a given or a clue.
A clue.
Outside or inside clues.
Inside.
Okay.
They're both okay. But let's go with inside.
Yeah. They're better anyway, so. All right. We have about 13 minutes left, so a few more questions we can get through. How would you describe your reputation as a constructor?
Well, so it's hard for me to know my own reputation. It's kind of, but I mean, I definitely am known for the riddle Sudokus. I slightly don't like being pigeonholed in that because they're so hard to set that I haven't set one in a long time. They're really, really hard to set. I'm kind of feel the pressure to set them since that's my reputation, but I haven't been able to come up with anything good, and I have a pretty good high threshold for what a good riddle Sudoku is. I'm kind of collaborating with Rumplener on one right now, but that's been kind of brewing for months. And I have a chess riddle Sudoku that I want to set. But anyway, sorry. My reputation. I really do think that most of it is like, riddle Sudoku. I don't know. It's hard for me to know my own reputation.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Do you feel like the riddle guy matches what is sort of the reality of what you think of yourself, or is there a lot more?
It's not a bad version. I'm okay with it. I'll put it that way.
Yeah. I've been meaning to ask this question but I kept forgetting it. maybe that was when I shut off. Uh, what riddle have you like wanted to set a Sudoku round, but you can't get the Sudoku part to work? Like, is there a favorite riddle that you want to work with?
There is a specific riddle that's kind of the one that I've been working on with Rumpliner. That it's a very nice riddle, but it's very hard to set. But I think there's one riddle that's kind of like straightforward as far as the riddle's concerned, and that's the kind I like for Sudokus. And I haven't figured out a good Sudoku dynamic to set it. So there's one about 12 coins where one of them is fake. It weighs more or less than the other ones. And you have to use a balance scale to figure out which one is the fake one. It's that type of riddle. That's a nice riddle. It's fairly challenging, so I think I'd have to like make people be able to work it out in the grid, kind of like with the other riddles. And I have no idea how to like sort of how to do that one as a Sudoku. And I've played around with a few ideas, and it's been very difficult to set. And then so that's one that I've not sort of been able to put into a grid yet. And another one is there's a few chess riddles I like, which are, basically, when I say chess riddles, I just mean chess problems like find mate in 7 type of thing.
Right.
Maybe not in 7, but find mate in a couple of moves. And I'm trying to figure out like what's the best way to put that in Sudoku. And some people have done stuff around like chess and Sudoku hybrids. I think there's a whole website of those actually. But they kind of don't do, theirs is kind of not chess, but like forced mate or like a collaborative mate, or there's all sorts of weird things. I want it to be like a straightforward chess puzzle and a decent one in a Sudoku with minimal other things. And that's very challenging as well. I've played with a couple of ideas there, but haven't found anything yet.
Right. So when you're going to set like a riddle Sudoku, is the first thing you're thinking about like, how do I put this into the grid, and how likely is it that people are going to solve it? Like the riddle itself?
That is a very big part of it. Anytime you have a long rule set, the number of potential solvers drops dramatically. Just because people don't have time to read a long rule set, understand it, put it into the grid. So I do like to use simple riddles for this. Like they have to be sort of, they don't have to have they can't have a huge story behind it. It has to be kind of right there. So I do try to use riddles that like you can write the rules of the riddle in like just less than half a paragraph, basically.
Right.
So that does limit the space of possible riddles. And then there's a lot of riddles that, you sort of like, let's see, there's like a strategy for how to accomplish something that you have to figure out. That's pretty much impossible to sort of put into a grid. Anything with probabilities is impossible to put into a grid just because it's, everything's 100% in the final grid. There's a lot of constraints. There are a lot of oh, you got your first spammer. A lot of messages. Sorry, a lot of Sudokus. A lot of riddles cannot make it into a Sudoku easily at all. So it is fairly constrained. I know a lot more riddles than I know riddles that could make it into a grid.
Right. Yeah. Do you have a favorite riddle? Do you have a favorite riddle?
I have a lot of riddles I like. As I kind of mentioned, light bulb Sudoku is one of my favorite riddles. I could give. I mean, I don't know if we have enough time for me to like give a whole riddle. There is a riddle I would ask in interviews, specifically for trading positions, but for like financial trading positions. But it's kind of a riddle for traders more than it is a logic puzzle. But if you want, I can very quickly describe it. It's
sure.
That's one of my favorite riddles because it is very good at identifying a certain kind of person, I think.
Okay.
And specifically a person that would make a good financial trader. So you want to sell your TV. You do a little bit of research and you see that a lot of TVs like yours have sold in your area for $500. The same kind of wear level and the same. Anyway, so you slap a $500 sticker on your TV and drag it outside to your porch and sit there sipping a bourbon, and then you notice that your neighbor across the street is dragging out his TV, and it looks identical to yours, the same wear level, same company, everything's identical, and his sticker says $200, and the question is, what should you do in this circumstance? And It's a little bit more open-ended than a typical riddle, but there is a sort of a right answer, and there's definitely a right answer if you want to be a trader. And I would ask this riddle in interviews. And I don't know if you want me to tell you the answer or not. I can, I suppose.
Is the answer buy his TV and sell them both for $500?
You could be a trader. So that's the correct answer. And you'd be shocked how many. Well, I've been surprised. Like, so some people get it instantaneously, just like you did just now.
Okay.
And those people are typically would make good traders. And there's some people that do not see that that's the right answer, like because they don't think of things as fungible, sort of, as can be bought and sold and traded. So anyway, that's a good riddle. I like that one.
Yeah,
And you got that really fast. That's impressive. I would have given you a job, or depending on other things.
I think the setup with saying that answering this riddle in this way would mean that you're a good financial trader also gave me a little bit of an edge to know what kinds of
the context would be the same. And
yeah.
I usually give that little preview before giving the riddle, and most people do not solve it as quick as you did. I can tell you that much.
Huh. Cool.
That was fun.
That was fun.
I could do. We have 5 minutes left. If you want, I can ask another riddle without giving an answer because I don't want to spoil it.
Sure,
but it's a kind of a fun one.
Yeah.
Sure, I do like riddles. I do not object to my reputation being one that's related to riddles. Okay, you're sitting at a table and you're blindfolded. You have a bunch of. It's supposed to be coins, but I like to use Othello pieces. Do you know the game Othello? They're black on one side, white on the other side.
Right.
You have a bunch of those coins in front of you, and you're told that 10 of them are facing with the white up, and the rest are with facing black up. And you're told you have to make two groups. They don't have to use all the Othello pieces, but you have to make two groups with the same number of white facing up. And that's the riddle. There's a way to do that. I hope that was clear enough as a description of it. It's been a while since I've asked that riddle. But that's
I might have to see that one out in text in order to fully understand it. But, yeah. Usually,
if you want, I'll write it on the Discord channel.
No, it's
in
okay.
In your Discord channel. Oh, it's fine. Yeah. All right.
But I will send you, because I forgot to send you who is next in the setter spotlight, and I usually get the guest to announce that. So I will send you who that is. I was typing that out just a second ago. So
did you? Okay, I see it.
Yeah. You got
I hope I know how to pronounce it.
I didn't send the full name because I assumed it wouldn't be easy.
Okay.
Just the first name is good.
So do you want me to say it?
Yeah, we'll probably wrap up now. Yeah, I don't have any. I think we answered almost all the questions. We were very thorough answering like multiple parts of the question at once. So
Thanks.
good job. Easy to interview.
I hope it was entertaining for people.
I think it was. Yeah. Thanks everyone for coming out and hanging out, and we will hear who is next up on the chopping block for setter spotlight, if that's
okay. So the next setter spotlight video is for Prasanna.
It would be.
I hope that's the right way to say it.
Prasanna. Yeah, Prasanna Shashadri.
Cool.
I think is. I'll take the risk and try to pronounce that last name. Hello,
great
Kodak.
setter. I'm really looking forward to that.
You did miss it, Kodak. We're done.
I'm gonna go check on the France England score right now.
Yeah, that'll be. I'm not a big football fan, but I hope everyone is enjoying the World Cup. Is it almost over now? It's like
no, it's only an hour in, so the whole second half should be good.
I meant like the whole thing, sort of.
The whole World Cup. Yeah. It's the quarterfinals now. So,
right. Yeah.
Quarterfinals next, starting on tomorrow.
Right.
No, Monday. Anyway, I'm not a huge 1-0 France at the half. according to David Ratner. Okay.
Yeah, David Ratner is a resident football fan, always keeping the Zeta Math stream updated with the scores.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Yeah. All right. Well,
All right.
it was a pleasure, Zegrass.
Thank you
And-
so much, Memrister. That was awesome, and it's an honor to be on this. So this is really cool. Thank you.
It's great to have you. Yeah, everyone do the algorithm dance, like the stream, comment, subscribe, all that stuff, and yeah, have a good rest of your day. Have a good December. I know it's a busy season, so good luck with everything and stay warm, stay safe. Bye, guys.
Bye, guys.